My name is Dan, and I'm a believer in Jesus Christ and a very grateful recovering addict. Uh, I have a God-given clean date of January 28th, 1991, and it's not because I picked it, it's because God allowed me to have that date. I would have never found this testimony without it. I was born in Boston in '56. My dad was a career Navy man. I I was raised between the East Coast and the West Coast, the Midwest, and all parts in between by aunts and uncles and grandparents and foster care. So in reflecting, I never really had that individual that was the parental, a dad, a family, guidance. I guess that's the right word. I would be moved around every couple of years with the cousins. And the thing about that is, whenever I would wind up with one cousin, so my last name Alaria, when I wound up with them, I was the cousin, and when I wound up with the Millses, I was the cousin. I was never like the family, and never felt like family. When I was with my grandparents, it was Grams drank, Grandpa drank, and the best part about that is being young is they would make homemade loaves of bread and Bach beer. So being a youngster, I could drink beer, and I didn't know anything about alcoholics or anything like that. I just know that every function that we were involved with, Christmas, Easter, it doesn't matter, birthdays, everything, everybody was intoxicated. I don't think that was my path. It's not like I said, oh, I want to be like that when I grow up. But I was never physically abused. If the spoon, the belt, switches, if that stuff, back in those days, I don't think it was considered physical abuse. Today, it might not be acceptable. I didn't get to live with my parents. My dad divorced when I was 18 months old. The stories that I heard about my real mom, who I never met, uh, she did my dad dirty, and I've never heard anything good about it. But he remarried, and my stepmom had two boys, and she didn't take care of them. She wasn't present, let's put it that way. And when I showed up to be there, I wasn't very welcome. She didn't like kids, and she really expressed that a lot. I know that when I was home and she was home, it was it was not a good thing. Um, my dad, I think my dad did the best he could, but it wasn't about being a dad. There's a couple of things in my head that remind me. I mean, like, don't back up. Don't back up in your vehicle. That was a great lesson that I learned from my dad. If you get in a fight, you fight to win. There's none of this socking and slapping kind of stuff. There was a few things that he taught me that really came in handy. But I also felt like I was being bought because he would pay people, cousins, aunts, uncles, to take care of me. And I remember one Christmas that he sent me a clock radio. And back in the day, I might have been 10 years old, but back in the day, that clock radio was extravagant as far as I was concerned. And the thing is, I thought clock radio, and it just kind of clicked in my head. He was trying to buy me. And it's probably not really what was going on, but that's what my head said. I grew up a good Catholic. I was raised Catholic. Got baptized 3 times because I kept losing my baptismal certificate, and I didn't understand. I was a good Catholic because I became an altar boy, and I did what altar boys do, and I used to drink the wine and things like that. I went away to seminary to become a priest. I thought that's what I wanted to do because my whole life, everybody everybody tried to do that. Every Sunday was go to church, you go to confession on Friday, go to church, and then you start your week all over again. And there was no accountability per se. So I bought into, this is an important part because I bought into the Catholicism hierarchy, and I don't know if everybody knows what that is, but as an altar boy, then they had brothers and priests and bishops and cardinals and the Pope, and all these chains of command is what it seemed like. That's the way I was taught, and there was no personal relationship with Jesus Christ. That didn't exist. Reading in the Bible, it wasn't about come to Jesus. We learned about Jesus, but it wasn't a relationship. Um, while I was away at seminary, and this is where I know that I turned away from God. I didn't know that a priest could lie, and I had a priest lie to my grandmother. That was a pretty devastating lie, and I was the only one that knew it was a lie. So now I know that this priest lied. My family doesn't know this, and it's like, okay, if that can happen, I'm gone. And that was about the time that I really started doing what I do. I turned to drugs. Going through mom's medicine cabinet was a great place to be. Going to school and stopping at the friend's house in the morning and finding the bowls of all kinds. Everybody would get whatever we could. And we'd take whatever we can. Um, I I did what I had to do to stay loaded. Um, the biggest thing is the relationship. Uh, when I was still in high school and I moved out, I got arrested. This was me living on my own, but I had a foster family that I was supposed to be with. And the foster dad was a cop. And so one night I got arrested for taking a $1.89 bottle of Boone's Farm. And on the radio, they called out my name, and he's like, I'll be right there. And so they came, and he pretty much he rescued me on that first arrest. It was my first arrest, but it wasn't my last. Um, I joined the Army in 1976, had my first daughter at Madigan Army Hospital in 77. Um, I divorced that wife, or that wife divorced me after about 5 years because of the insanity. Uh, I wasn't living a righteous life for sure. If it makes it easier to understand, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, that was my life. Partying was my life. Um, Selling drugs, making drugs, that was an incredible big part of my life. And I don't know anybody else ever lived like that, but it became a style, a lifestyle. It became exciting until it didn't. I know that when I got arrested, it didn't feel good, and it has lasting consequences. We'll say it like that. So I got divorced in, when did I get divorced in? 85, I think, 80. I don't know. I don't do time very well at all, but I got divorced. And ironically, okay, I got into a relationship, and I can talk about you, can I? I will anyway, right? My current wife, God bless her, we were still in the disease. We were still in, we'll call it, because of where I'm at, we'll call it living in sin. Um, she was in the mix, I was in the mix, but she did a whole lot better than me. She could go to work and pay bills. I would go to work and buy drugs. She could go to work and have a house, and I would rely on her taking care of us. And that went on for a long time. And the insanity of that was, we would argue, we would fight, and it was me. I would start the arguments and the fights so that I could go out and handle my business or do what I wanted to do. And then I'd come back, 2 days later, 3 days later, oh baby, oh baby. And she would always let me in, oh baby. I was the master of the oh baby, I thought. I can fast forward this to Thanksgiving Day. So I'm living in the disease of addiction. And if you've never been there, don't ever go. But if you've been there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Um, so Thanksgiving Day of 1990, the day before Thanksgiving, I had gone to the Connections house. Um, no, I had gone to the church, got a Thanksgiving dinner, then went to the Connections house, traded him the turkey and stuff, and got drugs for it. And so Thanksgiving morning, I'm sleeping out in front of his house, and he comes out there and he tells me, "You got to go. I got family coming." And I'm like, "Yeah, but where am I going to go?" You know, I didn't have a home. So I remember I wound up at a gas station on the corner, and it was 9 p.m. when this van pulled through there, and the lady rolled down her window and handed me a plate of leftover Thanksgiving dinner, you know, like here. And I was really grateful. I'm sitting there eating this dinner, and I realized there was nobody I could call, no place I could go. I was totally, completely alone. And I felt that. It was like, that was a really crummy feeling. Fast forward to Christmas Day, on again, off again relationship. I don't know honestly how I managed to get the funds to get to get a hotel room, but it's Christmas Day. I call the wife. I'm like, "Hey, come on down. We're going to do Christmas. Bring the kids." She shows up. She brings the kids, and she says, "I'm not going to stay." And I'm like, "You got to stay. It's Christmas. We got to do the family thing." She says, "I'm not going to stay." Okay, that was the time that my old baby didn't work, so I got to pull out the ace. Okay, well, if you don't stay, then I'm just going to have to kill myself. And she says, "You do what you got to do, but I'm not staying." Ah, that was devastating. So, but on the bright side of that, okay, everything that has occurred in my life has nudged me in the right direction. You know, it doesn't seem obvious and it doesn't seem apparent, but that's what it was for me. So about a month later, I wound up going to a treatment facility, and in that facility, the day that I got there, okay, I don't know about anybody else, but I got there, I had a military laundry bag and a duffel bag. That was the extent of my worldly possessions right there. And so I'm 34 years old, and this is it. This is as good as I got. In my head, in this disease, I'm thinking about, I gotta leave. I've made a bad decision here. I can't go to this facility. And what happens was, I walked through the double doors after they searched my possessions. It's like, how can you do that? Don't I have rights? And it's like, no. So anyway, I walked through those double doors, and my head is saying, "Leave, leave, leave." What happens? There was a little lady there. She was a heroin addict hooker, and the last time I saw her, she was in a hotel, and I thought she had died from an overdose. And that's who God put in my life when I walked through those doors. She put her arms around me, and she says, "Stay no matter what, do as you're told, and be honest." And I tried. I mean, that was my first attempt at recovery and doing. I had never been introduced to 12-step programs. I had never been to treatment. So doing this was incredibly difficult. I got there, I was angry, very angry, and I was most likely to project. That's what they voted me for, most likely to project. And I stayed there for 60 days. I learned about cleaning the clean and taking instructions, learning about instructions. But what I learned the most, they gave me that little feeling sheet, and that feeling sheet would allow me to identify feelings. Because before that, I knew one thing. I knew anger. I mean, I didn't understand that anger was a cover for fear. Okay? If you embarrassed me, I got angry. If you hurt me, I got angry. So, but God put in my life this little, not little, she was a very large, obnoxious woman. That was my counselor. I got there angry. I was about to get discharged because I was threatening somebody, and she called me out. And she says, "You're not angry, you're afraid. And now I want to fight with this lady. She's the counselor. How dare you say I'm afraid?" But she talked me through it and helped me to understand that that was just a mask. So I got involved I left treatment at 61 days clean, and my bottom was none of those things that occurred before that. My bottom happened 61 days into my recovery. My wife had started having an affair 5 days before I got out. That was my bottom. But again, God never wastes a hurt. So I remember we were in this little converted garage, 2 bedroom. My kids were sleeping in one room. My wife was sleeping in the other room. And I'm sitting in this big easy chair with the Bible. And I'm like, because the Bible, a lot of good instructions in there, right? And I know it talks about adultery. And I know I'm going to find what it says about adultery and I'm going to beat her with it, because how dare that? And that night, I sat there and I read and nowhere did I find what I was looking for, It was all about husband's responsibilities, love, forgiveness. That's not what I'm looking for, but that's what I got. She followed me into recovery 60 days after that, and when I say into recovery is all about change. If this is my testimony, the person you see standing before you, besides being about 100 pounds heavier than I was when I got here, I wouldn't be here. My head said I wasn't going to live till I was 25 years old. The way I lived said I wasn't going to live to 30. And the fact that I'm standing here today is a direct result of divine intervention as far as I'm concerned. Where was I? Okay, so we're in recovery. We're out in the middle of nowhere. I'm a mile from the treatment facility, and our neighbor was a very godly woman. I mean, today, if I have to push the button and call somebody that I know has a direct connect to God, besides me, she's it. But Rhonda started working for this lady, and she was an amazing person. Well, Rhonda got, I don't want to say drug in, but Rhonda felt it first, the calling. So she started going back to church, and we wound up going to church down in Riverside where Greg Lowry, everybody know Greg Lowry? Yeah, had his big old church down there, and I go, and I'm reluctantly going. But if I got to go, okay, we're going to sit in the balcony. I don't want to be, with all those crowded people. And I'm sitting up in the balcony while Pastor Greg is speaking to his congregation, 3,000 people, and I'm asking Rhonda, hey, is he talking about this step? Is he talking about this step? And she's like, uh-huh. So I'm thinking that's the power of the Holy Spirit taking his language and putting into my language, the language of recovery. And I could understand it. And so I became incredibly attracted to it. I wanted to hear more. So we started looking for a church, and we did a couple of different churches. I'm not good with the one that sticks the microphone in your face and says, introduce your family. That wasn't cool at all. Yeah. And I wound up, there was this box truck that had Heartland Community Church on there. So we decided we're going to go there. I wound up walking up there, and the pastor was out front shaking hands, and he had on a Raider hat. Well, I'm a big Raider fan. I thought, hey, this got to be good, And so we wound up starting to go to that church, and it did. It turned into a really good thing. I know that we started Celebrate Recovery. We had Celebrate Recovery. We were ministry leaders for 11 years, and this is after I don't do time very well, but all this time before this, being involved in Narcotics Anonymous, and then having God put it on my heart, put it on Rhonda's heart, really. She wanted to do it, and I'm like, so I got sucked into being involved in Celebrate Recovery, which is a Christ-centered 12-step program. We did that for 11 years. Somewhere along the way, we moved up north, right? We moved up to Central California, got a good job. I got a phone call from up north. They said, come on up. And so I wound up coming up. Been a good life ever since. Let's see, what am I missing here? Oh, I know that as far as our family's verse, Joshua 24:15, we adopted that. I think everybody does, but choose this day whom you will serve. And I mean, we got that down pretty good, I think. Um, can't say everything's been easy. I've had kids that have drifted. I've had kids that have come back. Um, I've lost my parents. We've lost Rhonda's parents. We actually took them in for a while there, before they passed away. And that's nothing. That's nothing to do with me. Okay, I'm not that guy. I'm not a nice guy. I'm not all warm and fuzzy. I'm not like that. But because of the program and the people that I associated with, it became a lot better. My my ability to work with people, to work. My passion is recovery. That's the bottom line right there. And I say this because not everybody has the gift of preaching. Not everybody has the gift of whatever it might be. But me, I can understand addicts. I relate to the still suffering addict and how to get out. I didn't have tools before I got here. I have tools today. So um, while we were doing our Celebrate Recovery, we renewed our vows. Was that 2010? Okay, so I got to back up. So how I got married, okay, I got married on January 28th, 1991. Not because I raised my hand and said, "Oh baby, will you marry me?" Because my wife, soon to be wife, made up invitations and passed them out to her friends. She gives me the last one and she says, "Be there or be gone." And it's like, it's funny today, but it wasn't so funny then because she was the hustle. She was the one that was taking care of us. So I showed up and we got married. And then it was a year later is when I got into treatment. So my clean date is January 28th. My anniversary is January 28th. And I know God did that for me because I don't do well with dates and numbers. So we renewed our vows in 2010, I believe it was. And I tell you what's really killer. If you're having a struggle in a relationship or something like that, don't ever go to those I still do marriage conferences, because we were at one of those conferences. There's about 15,000 people there, right? And they're doing what they do. They have talks and people lectures and stuff like that. Well, then come the surprise. Got to renew we're going to renew our vows. So here I am. I'm a big dude. She's a little girl. I mean, she's short. And so here I am. I'm holding this lady's hands and they're giving us the words, to have and to hold and da da da. But in my head, I'm remembering all the crap that I put her through. And the tears just start rolling down my face. It's like I'm actually saying this because I care, because I love her. And so it went from that oh baby, to the I'm glad we did what we did because this is the real deal. We've been together for about 40 years, and I know for a fact that I would not be here if it wasn't for her. I mean, she can't take credit for all the decisions that I make, but positively helps me make better decisions. I'm the kind of guy that, if we're doing taxes, yeah, well, cheat a little, cheat a little, cheat a lot. No, we can't do that. So, I mean, I can't tell you that I'm the most honest individual standing right here, but I can tell you that she is. I've never seen anything like it. Um, I'm not a leader. That's what I say. I'm not a leader, and there's people that disagree with me. So I'm the best second lieutenant that you can have. Okay, I got your back. I'll be there for that kind of stuff. I just need to know. Pushing you out front or inviting you to be out front, I'm good at that kind of stuff. Um, I don't know. The For me, the gift of recovery the relationship, and that's what I was going to say about being Catholic. Being Catholic, I didn't have a relationship. I got baptized, and that wasn't the relationship, but developing that relationship through working the steps. And our steps, the 12 steps, talk about uh, having had a spiritual awakening. Oh no, 11 step. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. Well, when I realized that God was Jesus, it sure did get better. And so now this I can go direct to my higher power, to Jesus. I don't have to worry about somebody else, taking care of that. Um, yeah, I don't know that I have anything. I would say if you know somebody who is struggling with the disease of addiction. And I'm so grateful that they said it was a disease, okay? Because when I got here, I thought I was just an immoral individual. I did so many things that go contrary to God's plan, that being Catholic, I thought I'm going to hell anyway, so what's the problem? And not until I got saved did I understand that there is a way out, until, I got that relationship. So if you know anybody struggling with the disease of addiction, I know there's people here that will do whatever they can to help. You just have to ask. And it doesn't have to just be drugs and alcohol. I mean, we can be addicted to all kinds of stuff. That's the real addiction. Isn't just about doing drugs and alcohol. Addiction is a way of life. I made poor decisions when I used. That's the bottom line. So today, by God's grace, actually in 3 days, I'll have 35 years, and I'll be married 36 years. Yeah. And that's a direct result of living the program and changing my life. So anyway, I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you guys sat around and listened. Hope you got something out of it. Thanks for letting me share. Yeah.
All right. Well, Dan, thanks for sharing.